Welcome back to my podcast. This is episode 3 of this series, which is based on a framework that I've been working on for many years, but particularly over the last year. This series introduces an integrative framework for understanding relational trauma, which is a specific type of trauma that the majority of clinicians most likely see in their everyday practice. If you've had the chance to listen to the last 2 episodes, you might notice that the content is slowly but increasingly becoming more insightful. I'm introducing heavier concepts as we move forward, or aha moments, if we can call them that. This episode is no different. If you're the kind of person who takes notes, this is an episode where I highly recommend that you do, because there's a lot of content and it's going to be coming at you fast. I'm not going to lie, these episodes are very dense with information, and they're going to become increasingly dense as we progress. Make sure to take your time listening and take breaks when you need to, because it can be a lot to absorb. I want to start with a simple question. What does it actually mean to feel safe? What's the first thought that comes to mind when you hear the word safe? For myself, when I think about the word safe, I think of protection, a lack of harm or danger. Some people might say that feeling safe goes hand in hand with feeling peaceful, stress-free, or comfortable. But here's the thing. Your nervous system doesn't care about comfort. It cares about survival. And that distinction changes everything. Because your brain and your nervous system work together to keep you safe. And that is the brain's main priority above anything else. In the last episode, we talked about 3 foundational components that shape how trauma forms: co-regulation, meaning-making, and the nervous system's survival drive. Today, we're slowing down and zooming in on one central idea of this entire framework. Safety is the organizing principle that underpins trauma, attachment patterns, and early maladaptive schemas. Safety is a biological calculation your brain is making every second of your life. Your nervous system is constantly scanning. Am I in danger? Do I have resources? Am I alone? Do I belong? Based on those evaluations, your system shifts into one of 2 broad modes: defense or regulation. When perceived threat is high, defense activates. When perceived threat is low and resources are sufficient, regulation becomes possible. That's safety. Not the absence of stress, but the presence of enough predictability, connection, and internal stability for your system to stand down from defense. And it all makes sense when we stop to think about it. Our environment has changed tremendously over the past millions of years. We've gone from sleeping in caves and writing on cave walls to going to work every day and taking yearly family vacations. From that perspective, that's an enormous shift. The brain, on the other hand, as much as it has evolved over time, has never changed in its primary purpose. And that purpose is to keep you alive. From an evolutionary standpoint, humans did not survive alone. Why? Because a human separated from their tribe thousands of years ago did not last long. I personally love giving concrete examples and metaphors to explain concepts, and I tend to get creative with them. So here's an example. Let's say you are a Homo sapien living 1,000,000 years ago in South Africa. You live in a cave, you write on cave walls, and you go out into the wild to hunt your own food and pick berries. Now, let's say you have to go hunting today. Do you feel comfortable going alone? Or do you want to bring your Homo sapien friend, let's call him Timmy, with you? The idea is that your chances of dying drastically increase if you go out there alone, whereas your chances of survival increase if you bring Timmy with you. Unless Timmy's incompetent, but that's actually a whole other episode's worth of content, which we will be talking about in the next few episodes of this series. And no, I'm not kidding. So, belonging was not an emotional luxury, it was a biological necessity. Because of that, the human nervous system evolved to treat relational threat as survival threat. Rejection, humiliation, abandonment, unpredictability in relationships, emotional withdrawal. These experiences activate survival circuitry. To your brain, social isolation historically meant death. So when someone withdraws from you emotionally, your nervous system does not interpret that as minor interpersonal tension. It interprets it as potential threat. The fear of abandonment is so painful because the brain perceives abandonment as a massive survival risk. Your chances of survival go down if someone leaves you. This is why relational trauma cuts so deeply, because connection is wired into survival. Here's another crucial piece. Your brain is not neutral. It is biased toward detecting danger. Remember, your brain is always scanning for threat. The amygdala does not wait for certainty. It reacts to cues, tone of voice, facial expression, silence, a delayed text message, a subtle shift in someone's energy. Safety is not about facts, it's about perception, and perception is influenced by prior experience, by the meaning we attribute to those experiences. If you grew up in unpredictability, your nervous system becomes highly sensitive to unpredictability. If you grew up with criticism, neutral feedback may register as threat. If you grew up with emotional withdrawal, distance may feel catastrophic. Your system is not asking, hold on, let's figure this out. Is this objectively dangerous? It's asking, does this resemble like what has hurt me before? That's threat detection shaped by experience. Now, this next part is important. You can be uncomfortable and safe. You can have conflict and still be safe. You can feel anxious and still be safe. Safety does not mean zero activation. It means your nervous system has determined that the environment is stable enough to allow flexibility. When you are safe, you can think clearly. You can tolerate discomfort. You can update your beliefs. You can stay present in conflict. You can repair rupture. When you are not safe, you defend. You withdraw. You attack. You shut down. You become rigid. Think about how much sense this makes. When you're not safe, you're in a state of survival. Would you be able to think clearly if you were stuck in an alligator pit with a bunch of alligators? Probably not. Would you be able to read a book if I handed it to you in that alligator pit? Not unless you're very special. Now, here's where trauma enters the picture. Trauma is not just the memory of what happened. It is the imprint left when the nervous system concludes that something is not safe. If a child grows up in chronic unpredictability, their nervous system may learn connection is unstable. If a child experiences emotional neglect, their system may encode, my needs don't matter. If betrayal occurs within dependency, the conclusion may become, closeness is dangerous. Once these safety conclusions solidify, they influence attachment strategies, meaning-making patterns, early maladaptive schema development, and relationship dynamics. Safety becomes distorted, and the world is filtered through that conclusion. Now we bring this back to episode 2 and the topic of meaning-making. Simply put, meaning-making refers to the interpretations we assign to experiences and interactions. Meaning tells the nervous system what something represents. The nervous system then decides whether it is safe. If it decides it's not safe, that experience reinforces the original meaning. This creates a loop, an interaction between meaning, safety appraisal, and attachment strategy. Over time, this loop becomes automatic. You do not consciously decide to shut down. You do not consciously decide to pursue reassurance. You do not consciously decide to withdraw. Your system is responding to perceived safety. We often see different perspectives on social media. Some individuals will say something like, "Somatic therapy is how we heal the body. You can't think your way out of trauma." Unfortunately, it has become framed as cognitive therapy versus somatic therapy, safety versus insight, brain versus body. Here's what I believe based on research. When trauma is rooted in a single, discrete traumatic event, reducing conditioned fear responses through somatic therapy may be sufficient for recovery. Much of the research supporting therapies such as EMDR has been conducted in the context of single incident trauma involving symptoms of PTSD, not relational trauma. Relational trauma is different. It forms in the context of attachment and safety appraisal within relational connection. That does not mean EMDR doesn't work, and it does not mean somatic work isn't beneficial. Self-regulation and somatic work can absolutely increase internal stability for individuals who struggle to regulate. But when safety has been disrupted in relationship, it must also be recalibrated in relationship. What is organized relationally must be reorganized relationally. The wound that was created in a relationship must be repaired in the context of a safe, secure relationship. Therefore, you need both insight and relational safety. Both are required, not one more than the other. In the next episode, we're going to move even deeper into how these safety conclusions crystallize into attachment strategies and early maladaptive schemas. Because once you understand how safety organizes the system, you begin to see why trauma persists, and more importantly, what actually allows it to shift.